Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching Sit Down. Reggie Rock Bythewood is here with us. Swagger is brand new TV show from CBS Studios on Apple TV Plus. Reggie, it's been a good one, man. How are you?
I'm really great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you've done a lot of cool things in your career, but the opportunity to make this show, to work with Kevin Durant, and to make an impact in terms of telling this story and also putting a sports story out there is really fantastic. So how did this all come together and what's been like so far?
Well, yes, it's been really amazing. It really came together because Kevin Durant and Brian Grazer, who are two exec producers on the show, along with me and Rich Kleiman, they had a meeting and they talked about doing a show focused on KD's youth basketball days. You know, there's a sort of whole world of like grassroots basketball and really with 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds and high school age players. Our show centers on these 14-year-old youth players. And, you know, when we think of like 14, you know, you might think of it as like, oh, wow, that's cute. You know, they're not playing on this certain level, but, you know, it's really like, you know, it's like finding Serena at 14 years old. It's like finding, you know, just these top elite athletes at 14 years old and how like gritty and rough that world is. And so I met with KD and really thought it would just be a great canvas to tell a narrative that's really about growing up in the world of basketball, but even more importantly, growing up in America.
Yeah, there's so much involved with what you just said there. And that age of 14 too, right? We think about it, you're a kid, but at the same time, that's not the case because these kids are thinking about their basketball futures, they think about their families, they think about their lives. So when you spoke with KD, what was most interesting about his youth story that maybe you wanted to focus on here that we don't really talk about necessarily enough when it comes to this conversation?
Well, I mean, I think really ultimately at the end of the day, you know, we forget that they're kids, right? And so one of the things that we do in Swagger is we look to give a view from every seat in the house, the point of view from the youth player, from the parent, from the coach, even from the sneaker companies that are really drawn to these, you know, future NBA stars. And so this idea that they're kids that, you know, one of the hardest things to do as a parent is to allow your kid the opportunity to fail, you know, but it's okay as long as, you know, they get off get off the floor, as long as we all pick ourselves up. But I think, you know, it was really interesting because KD at 14 wasn't this undeniably, you know, future NBA star. He had to really prove himself.
It's funny how things can change in just a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
You're one thing at 14, and then all of a sudden, a couple of years later, you can pop off just like that.
Right, and you know, but what's different for us, this is not a biopic, and so I really use KD's story as a launching pad and really telling this contemporary story, you know, that's set in 2020, and it's set before COVID and Brianna and so many of the things that happened in 2020. And then we just kind of carry on the narrative and bring in COVID and bring in all the sort of social unrest and really how it has shaped, you know, their lives. You know, interesting enough, that wasn't the plan. When we first started, we could never have imagined anything like a pandemic. And so when the pandemic shut down our production, it just allowed, you know, myself and the writing staff to just really hold a mirror up to society and bring that narrative into our story.
That's a really beautiful thing about a show like this, right? You've done hard-hitting films in the past, but you have this runway of a TV series where you can go into things and really get in depth. So what did it mean to you to get into these social issues, whether it's Breonna Taylor or really anything else that you wanted to touch on? How important was that to you when you think about it now?
Well, I mean, I think like one of the things that's really amazing about this is that, you know, we looked at this as a 10-hour film. You know, and so, you know, our 10th installment is this Friday. But it was just really amazing to just be able to go in depth, really shape the characters so that it's not just a narrative about basketball, but really about, you know, these human beings, and everybody sort of growing up in this environment. And I would say that one of the more satisfying things that we've really come across with the show is just finding that, like, you know, parents watching this with their middle schoolers and high schoolers, and really feels like it's become a cross-generational show, which is, you know, very, very exciting and meaningful to us.
Now, Reggie, you're doing a show about basketball. How's your game, man? I mean, where do you like to do your thing on the court? Do you still play a little bit? You picking up basketball these days? You know, what's the
Listen, man, listen. I retired, but I did pick up the ball one time on set. We won't out anybody, but I did pick up the ball one time on set. Had a small little shooting contest and I won. Get it on video. I'm gonna wait for the right time to pull it out.
I like that. What were some of the biggest challenges of producing this show and creating this show? Because sports on TV or sports on movies, they're not easy to do because there are all these different intricacies. So what were some of the things you really had to make sure that you nailed with this show?
Well, just a couple of things. One, the authenticity was everything. You know, Kevin Durant is a exec producer on this. I mean, we were not going to not have the basketball look very, very elite and very, very high level. So in our show, you know, there's never, ever a shot where somebody will shoot the ball and will cut to it going through the hoop. Like if you see somebody dunking, if you see somebody making a three-pointer and turning their back, it's legit. And so we had a huge casting search to find, you know, particularly our lead character, you know, Jace Carson, played by Isaiah Hill, and was really amazing because Isaiah is the type of player that he doesn't just dunk, like he just puts everything on it, all the hot sauce and everything that you would want, you know, but he also has this real amazing vulnerability that allowed us to just feel his emotions, the emotions of all of our characters, not always dependent on dialogue, but just really having these real strong, powerful moments. So that was a really big challenge to just make sure we can get the acting on the level that we wanted and the basketball on the level that we needed it to be. And then the other major challenge was the pandemic. But what really looked like the hugest challenge for us ended up becoming, you know, the biggest opportunity story-wise. The fact that we, you know, decided to hold the mirror up to what was happening in our real world.
Those are the best kind of shows, and it's been awesome to see you doing your thing. So the finale of season 1 is on Friday. For folks that have been watching all season, for folks who haven't been watching, what can they anticipate when they check it out?
I think that they can anticipate a very emotional, impactful ending. And I think for those that are just going to be, you know, introduced to Swagger for the first time, I think you'll just really be enveloped for a hell of a ride, and probably a lot deeper than you might think. So we do have the glitz and flash of basketball, but we really go deep and hard on society issues and societal issues and you know, the life and pulse of our characters.
Good deal, man. Reggie, pleasure to meet you. You're an incredible artist, and folks are really going to like this one coming up. So thanks so much for the time, and we'll chat again down the road, all right?
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.